I'm Georgette Beck, and I am from Treasure Coast, Florida, here with the Notable Peeps podcast.
Have you ever had a goal that just seemed impossible? If so, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Notable Peeps podcast, a series that gives attention to remarkable people who are putting on their shoes, doing their best, and believing in the impossible.
All my dreams are coming true.
Georgette, hello. I always start with this question for guests. Tell me about a time in your life that you were struggling and how you were able to overcome it.
Oh my gosh. Well, listen, my book, Junk to Jules, talks about that, but Junk to Jules is a process that repeats. When I wrote my book, it came later in life, but that was a struggle. I tried to write it on and off through the years. That was a big, big struggle for me. But it got finished because, listen, you don't give up. All the books I've ever read through my life, podcasts I've listened to, you surround yourself with community, you get you the support that's needed. I just didn't give up. And then I reached out to those that were better at it than me. So a tribe, a people, community. Listen, Steph, I went through a lot of seasons where I was ready to give up. You know, the single mom, when my marriage fell apart, I thought I was the most horriblest person in the world. And then slowly God surrounded me with people that said, no, that's not true. It's a lie. So, single mom years, I worked all the jobs. Later in a blended family, repeat, it was a horrible acclamation. I didn't think we would make it. Here's this second chance marriage, and we're not going to do it, but we made it step by step, journey by journey. So a lot of moments.
I always like starting with that question because it sort of gives like the background of things, and like what you said, like starting with writing a book. I think that that's so vulnerable, especially when you're talking about your like marriage and being a single parent, like that's and not to mention everything before that. And so one thing I was curious about, because like not only are you award-winning Christian author, you're a speaker, and you have your master's in marriage and family counseling, but you in your book you talked about, sorry, my hand, when you write really fast and then you're like, wait, no, I can't read my handwriting.
I do that all the time. Are you kidding?
Okay, I think it says broken. Okay.
Yep.
So in your book, when you talk about moving from broken to beautiful, what's like the first step for people who are feeling shattered, like, because let's be honest, like those hard moments in life can like really just knock the wind out of you. What do you feel like that first step is
Well,
to get over feeling broken?
the subtitle in my book says it, like a journey from brokenness and despair to beauty and delight, because you are
Mhm.
broken and there is despair. I talked about I had depression as my companion, there fear, devastation. I felt horrible. I felt like it was my fault that my life fell apart, like my marriage ended. It was my fault. I was the messed up one because there was messaging throughout my growing up that's the messaging I was receiving, but that wasn't the intent. That was people's inability to speak and communicate properly because they didn't have the skill set from their parents. Um, it was just one thing at a time. God picked me up, put me in a community, a great neighborhood that turned into awesome friendships, of faith community, of people that took my daughter and me under their wings, invited us in. And I have 4 C's I talk about, and it's from my own lessons, but people surrounded us and then people invited us in and we felt like we mattered, like people cared about us. They helped us. They gave us counseling and teaching and prayer, and then they invited us to show up and participate in events. We were invited on a softball team. I got free counseling from my job where I'd worked at a nonprofit that helped moms and people going through tough times. So it was a little bit at a time, but it was just people caring. Like you need to get yourself in a supportive community. And then it was just lessons over and over again. Repetition is big stuff. That's why I read all the books and I still read and I listen to podcasts. I put input. I still do it over and over because the same principles, like they're the same life principles apply to all of us, but at different times they resonate differently. So, yeah, a lot of that, I still do it because junk to jewels repeats through our seasons in life. We have a new circumstance that may come at us. Like, honestly, divorce is a depression. Like, you are abandoned, rejected. There's all the emotions, the anger, the fear. How am I going to do this? How am I going to take care of my kid? I had the one. Some people have more than one. So how do we do this? And it just works slowly but surely. You get up. You don't quit. You persevere. My faith kept me on everything. Like, if I didn't have my faith, but it was people. It was other people helping me. And then later I learned I'm gonna help other people too, because that's how it works. And me helping someone else helped my own day. I volunteered as they called it the telephone ministry. Back in the day, we would call people and check on them, see how are you doing today? Is there anything you need help with? Can I pray for you? And I would go show up for my shift crying because I was having this tough day, go do my shift and then leave. Oh, it's gonna be okay. Like, it's gonna be okay.
You mentioned your 4 C's. I'm curious, can you share with us what your 4 C's are?
So contemplation, community, caring, and contribution. So contemplation. So a lot of us, like for me, I was going through life on an automatic. I was unconscious. I was ignorant. I did not know where I came from. I did not realize generational repeat was a real thing. I did not know that we carry trauma from our past, from our generational past too. That includes joys or trauma. But I didn't know that until I started asking questions. Why did I marry this person when there were signs that I shouldn't have? Why did I not go to university and stayed home and married someone a year later out of high school? Why did I do that? Like, so, but it turns out there's reasons. So it's contemplation is I journal. I write in my journal, and to me, it's my prayers. I write lists, I do prayer lists, I write my dreams. And do you know, like I had a wish list for my second husband. I had a wish list for a man I want to meet. And do you know almost every point came true? It's just
Wait,
so
really?
I'm serious. It's in the book and almost every point. But one, he wasn't financially wealthy, but here we are. We have art in our house, we travel, so there's financial, ability there,
Mhm.
but contemplation's everything. Get quiet, be in that still, because then you start to get insight that rises up from within, and then the community is key. Counseling, getting in a faith community or work community, small groups. There are so many of interest groups you can find, and you start asking the question about, "What do I love to do? What am I good at?" And then find like-minded people. You're not like I'm a go-getter like my dad, right? So my dad was an entrepreneur and he worked all his life and created very successful businesses. Well, I've always had passion to do a lot of things all at the same time. I read a lot of books at the same time. I want to go take classes. I want to travel. I want to do this. I want to do that. And now I have several endeavors, I call it. There's the I have Junk to Jules Enterprises. I'm a realtor, so we have that business. I have a nonprofit. And I would always feel bad about that because people were like, "Why do you always want to go back to school? Why do you want to read? Why do you do all that?" I'm like, life's for living. But then I met people like me and better than me, like more than me. I mean, Dolly Parton, for instance, she's a great visual example. We're meant to use our gifts fully, and there's plenty. We can be more than one thing. So, community, caring. When people loved on me when I didn't feel lovable, they saw me. The fact that they would hug me when I walked in church, I felt seen. I felt like, "Oh my gosh," and I would go home better. That helped. And then contribution, I learned that when I served as a volunteer, even if I didn't feel all that in a bag of chips, I felt better. I felt like I was worthy enough to help someone else, and that in turn helped them, and it's a cycle. So all of it, the contemplation, community, caring, contribution on repeat all of the time, they're all interrelated.
When you talk about, like, because you moved to a new neighborhood, right? So you were meeting all these new people. Were you nervous at all to, like, get to know your neighbors or to go to church, or was it easy
Uh,
for you?
so it was a whole different time back then too. It was like I literally got uprooted from Connecticut, put in Florida. We got plopped. It was a brand new apartment complex, so that was a special blessing. No one ever lived in the unit.
Mm.
I was like facing the pool. I was on my second floor, facing out into the parking lot. It was so beautiful and special. we had an elderly couple downstairs. They ended up befriending my daughter and I, and they showed me life. They had their family visit them almost every weekend. And then as later, one of my single mom jobs, I was assisted care. So I would be in someone's home helping them move around, sit down, get up, and they never had any visitors. They were
Mm.
like, I saw the pro con contrast. They were selfish. All their life, they only cared about their own life. On the other side, Tom and Julia, and that's their name, they cared about each other. They put family first. He put his wife first. They would hold hands, walk into the pool, and I got the example. I saw it. Lonely on this side because they were selfish. On this side, they had a beautiful, thrilling life with family surrounding them like all the time. And they had such a productive life. I was like in my 30s. So I I was lonely because I was afraid to let people in. And then God plopped me in several different communities, a work community, the church, and the neighborhood. And I was forced to open up. People were inviting me, and then when they didn't reject me and they invited me again, it became safer for me to be real. And so I started being real, and I would do life with people. And do you know when we do life with people, we are stronger together? It's true. I think social media has its place. Like, look, our podcast, we're meeting people all over the world. It's a gift, right?
Mhm.
We got to take the next step and actually plan in person. There is so much in my community alone now. There's a lot of networking opportunities. My husband and I are doing that. And we feel very strongly the reason why we're realtors, it came late in life because I was an insurance agent. I did development and sales for a nonprofit. I wanted to just be the writer and be the nonprofit person, right? But
Mhm.
through its relationships, God was wanting us to meet strangers, but not, and then let them not be strangers. So now I know if I'm connected, and you can feel it in a room of people, you connect with certain ones, not everyone, but then that's a sign, invite them to coffee. Go do a coffee meetup. And that's the other thing I'm being brave on because I still struggle to show up in a room full of people. I still have to do that myself and force myself to do it, but it's easier because I keep doing it, but then I walk away better. We have coffee connects and we do coffee. And every coffee now it's like people are sharing more and more and more. And so you're really developing those friendships. And I never knew about friendship stuff until I went through my divorce. I never had such girlfriends until my broken time. And then we're still friends today. We have dinner once a month now with our new husbands. Like we all were a part of that broken season together. Each of us lost in a marriage, like we had a brokenness, but then we made it. We healed, and now we're together to celebrate life. But it's choices. Like we have to show up in those hard places. So community can happen for us now. We have to go find it. We have to choose to show up. And honestly, I'm going to say in person is where you need to go. Like start with the social, start with the internet, but then get in a room and do it consistently. And then you get so blessed because you have a friend. Like it doesn't happen overnight. To make friends is hard, but it happens. And it's beautiful when it does.
What you said about, like, there's gonna always be the people that you connect with in a room, and that's what you're looking for. Like, we don't have to, I don't know, that was just an aha moment of, like, we don't have to be friends with everyone, but, like, those people that is just easy to talk to, easy to laugh with, like, those are our people.
Yeah. That's why like there's no like when you're out networking, sometimes people are in the mindset there's competition. Like, oh, another realtor's in the room or a teacher or a doctor. No. Do you know how many teachers and doctors? It's someone's meant for someone. And there's always that connection. It will always, the right person will come to you, but you got to go put yourself in the room. You gotta go in the room. You have to just be available for I call divine appointments. Divine appointments do sometimes knock on your door at your house. They do. But most of the time, you have to go just like creativity. They say the great books within you, but you got to put yourself in the seat at the computer or the journal and be ready. Like you got to be there consistently to be ready for what comes. Well, same in the room. It's and And not everyone's for everyone, and I learned later, like, when I was the first networker, I remember working the room, right? I gave my card to everybody, and I would call everybody to follow up, but not everyone it's timing. It's the right person at the right time, and it will happen for you. And that's with relationships, like, you the more you show up, the increases the likelihood of you finding the next right person, like the connection. That is mutual, and usually those connection stuff are mutual. You think they're helping you, but you're really helping them. And let me say more on this. I learned that when I ask someone for help, I'm allowing their gift to be used. Not only am I getting the help I need, but I'm blessing them because they get to use their gift. So asking for help is part of that process of showing up in community.
No, I love that of asking for help, and even how you ask, like, "Hey, let's go get coffee." It's that, extra step
Yeah.
of becoming friends or, like, m business acquaintance or whatever it might be, but just,
Yeah.
building on that connection. I am curious, and pivoting with this because I feel like there's so much I wanna talk to you about, and I'm like, "Ah, we're already" um time is running down. But you mentioned making a list for your new husband. Now,
Yeah.
after feeling
What if I could vote?
shattered, right? It's hard to be able to trust again. It's
Oh,
hard to be able to hope again for another future because that
yes.
future of everything you dream for, like you said, it's in pieces.
Yeah.
And going with your junk to jewels. So like how did you prepare for dating? And, like, can we just, like, dive into all that?
I was vulnerable in the book. It's really vulnerable, but I felt it was important. I was a mess. Like, I was so embarrassed to share myself because I was a mess. But I didn't even know how to do a home. Like my closet, and even to this day when someone offered to help me organize my closet, I had this thing rise up like this shame and I started crying. It still was in me. And then I realized, oh, it's because of that like, I felt so shame. I had such shame of embarrassment, like, I didn't even know how to manage a house, but I learned. So, it was a slow process. I think my single mom years were, like, 6 years and something. Now, each of us have a different journey. And out of my 3 friends, I joke, I was the first of our 3 to find my next one, right? And I said I was the most neediest. Like, my other friend had a family support in place, a giant family. She was good to go, and she was more independent than I was. And then my other one, she was second. So she got married after me. And so we joke about that, but I needed all that time. I thought I was ready right after the divorce, but no. See, don't, matter of fact, my thing I talk about, be cautious. Take your healing journey seriously. Take this time where you're broken like that and lonely as an opportunity. Don't rush into the next relationship because you will rob yourself of your true destiny if you go too quick. And I listen, I speak from, I wanted to meet the next person right away because I didn't know how much I was healing from abandonment, but you can't heal from abandonment in another relationship. You got to heal from abandonment and rejection in your skin with you and realizing your own beauty, your own joy, your own gifts. And that was a slow, painful process, but then it started becoming beautiful in the pain. And I was coming alive. I learned I loved opera. I learned I loved flowers and chocolate and sushi and caviar. Like, I made a thing of it. We never had money, but sometimes I would sacrifice something and I would treat my daughter, and I would get a little dessert at the grocery store, what she loved to eat. I would get a tiny little thing of caviar, champagne, and flowers. Like, and then we would treat ourselves once in a while for that. But it took a little at a time, and then when education came back around for me, because things do get restored when we're on the right path. Things we were supposed to have learned about or done, it'll come back around if we align ourselves and get in that position. And it was through counseling, it was through, prayer groups, it was through education. I was back in school, it came back around. Um, I learned from other people, the show and tell, and I learned from my mistakes of what I don't want. So right before my husband came into my life, it was right at the same time I was trying to end a 10-month relationship of the person from a generational repeat. Everything on my inside, my new healing, knew this person wasn't for me, but I call it my caboose, was still just used to that. And and it was afraid to change that of what you're familiar with. And it's like, no, no, no. So it took 10 months for me to say, no, this person's not for me. He lies. He doesn't have the values I have. Why would I want that? Right? We accept stuff in our life when it's the old you, and it's not the new you. But the old you's wise. So we need to like pay attention to the old us because it's still of us. And that spoke. So my list was from what I learned about myself in the process and what I learned I don't want anymore. I want a man who's educated. I learned from watching one of my professors. He was a male professor, married, young, and handsome. And I was like, oh, nice, right? Why can't I have that for me too? Well, I could. I don't have to have a workaholic I don't have to have an emotionally unavailable person. Oh, I can have someone that likes to dress up and look fine and wear cologne and likes to go do dinner out and travel. Like, huh. So it's like what I love. You want to have a match, and especially of values. You don't want to get matched with someone who doesn't have the same values you do. So it took all that learning. It took people. It took time. It took time. And every person I met along the way, and I did date. Remember, I tried really hard. And then there were seasons I was not dating. And then there was seasons I was. But every person added a valuable clue to what I was, and who I wasn't, and who I really wanted and who I didn't want, what type of person, qualities, you know? I definitely wanted someone to have faith like I did because I love talking about it. And it makes life easier when you're on the same it's a strong foundation. If you're similar in thinking, like in your values, your integrity, how you do life, what's really most important, how you treat people. You don't want to be with someone that treats someone horribly if you never treat people horribly. So I learned like through all the muck of it. I remember my mom, we were having a hard conversation on the phone one time as part of our own healing, mother-daughter. And she's like, Georgette, sometimes you just got to walk through the mud to get to the other side. And that's what junk to jewels is. It's the mess. But underneath that yucky is beauty. Like that's when the gems get discovered, and we all have the gems. We all have it. And yeah. So Scott, who's my hubby now, 22 years, um, he came when I had to say I believed in myself enough to wait for the right person. I remember me and God had a prayer. I said, God, am I going to serve you as a single forever, or am I going to have someone like, and then he's funny, like faith is real. So I, all of a sudden this book comes into my hand about Peter Marshall. Catherine was his wife, and she wrote about Peter Marshall. And in that book, he talked about heaven on earth in a marriage and how they met and their integrity and their standards. And all of a sudden I started crying because I was reading words that it was like God was speaking to me. And I was outside of my apartment on my porch reading, and I had to run into my bedroom. I got on my knees. I'm facing my bed, and I felt impressed to look to my right on my dresser. And I have a couple collection. And inside, I had a knowing, and it's God speaking. It comes from within us. It's not an audible voice. It's just a knowing. And inside I saw, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I felt, who do you think created you? Who do you think created you to be the Hallmark girl at jar, and you love the happy ending, and you collect these couples, these collections, right, of romance, and you read the stories and you love that, right? Well, who do you think created you to be that way? Of course you're going to serve me with someone. And I'm like, oh, today, tomorrow, but no, it was the end of the year. It was coming up to my time, but I never would have meant it. I never would have been okay by myself if I wasn't forced to do that journey and I not settle, because my daughter would have suffered. I would have suffered. The generations next would have suffered if I didn't stand up and say enough of what doesn't belong anymore. And we have to uncover. It's like an adventure. It's like a treasure hunt. We got to discover our own treasures, and it's hard work. It takes work.
I love what you said, we have to discover our own treasures, and that, like, during it, that's when you see the jewels. But I wanna
It was
continue because okay, so how did you meet him? So then it was later that year. How did you guys meet? I want the love story.
okay. So I did too, right? I was waiting for the love story, but it's funny. So the person I was trying to get away from, the person I met. Okay, So it was meant to be. And this is why, listen, sometimes we think our mistakes are horrible and it's all our fault. Well, this is a weird, mysterious thing that happens in our life. It was divine. So when I resigned from being an insurance agent to go back to school full time, because I was listening to my intuition, I had an epiphany. I wasn't going to be an insurance agent forever. I wanted to serve and help, and education had come back around. I said yes. I took the jump of faith. I went to the college, applied, had no idea how it was going to work out. I found out I qualified for grants, but I didn't know that until I already applied. So you have to do the faith jump. I jumped the mountain and I resigned. On my last day, there was one of my prospects, and this is someone I was calling, emailing. I would love to give you a quote on your insurance. This person, we kept trying to, connect. My last day, like we connected right before I was leaving the office, right? So I had the appointment and this person invited me to dinner. And that's when that relationship started. That person. So it was meant that he come in my life, but he wasn't meant to stay. He was the one to show me that this is not for me no longer. A certain type of person. It wasn't a generational repeat no more. It was going to be changed, right? Through that person, I met this other woman. This woman happened to be someone who worked with the man I didn't meet yet. She worked with the police station, right? So through this time, all of us would hang out together sometimes. And then one day at the end, right? I was crying and she's like, Georgette, all of us know he's not for you, but you. And I'm like, no, I know. And she's like, can I give your name and number to my friend? Because she was working with my husband. He was going through a divorce. And she's like, I think you'd be helpful, right? So I get a phone call and I'm working at my dad's place, right? I'm helping him in his business. I'm working there. I get a phone call. Now, by then, I already knew, like all my dating, I was the only Christian. And I was the one telling people about Jesus and inviting them to church. All of a sudden, I get this phone call from someone and it's Scott. And it was weird because he had just started going to my church and I didn't know. And when he's talking to me, he's like, I got your name and number from Eileen. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember. She said that she had someone. And so he starts telling about himself. And I said, so do you go to church? And he says, yes. And I'm shocked because that's never happened before, talking to anyone new. And then I go, oh, what church? And he says, my church. Now, mind you, now my mouth is dropping, but then it gets better. And he goes, he had an intuitive feeling. He goes, I think I know you. And he describes what I wore on the last Sunday because he had noticed me and my daughter. I was hugging on her and, he noticed me because I was so pretty, right? But he noticed, loved how I interacted with my daughter and he liked that, right? He went to go try to introduce himself to me that Sunday, but a friend got in the way and started talking to him. So I walked right by him. And then he's like, I'm going to meet her next Sunday, right? This is the timing. I was that person that he had the phone number and I was the person he noticed. And then when he described that outfit, I'm like, okay, this is what's going on here, right? And then from that day on, Steph, he just called me all the time. And then we emailed and then we said, all right, let's do a meetup. And we met at my favorite cafe down in downtown Stewart. It was Osceola Cafe. And we had a face-to-face meeting. So he was finishing his season. His marriage had ended. He was going through the divorce process, the court. And came right on time that he needed some encouragement. And my season was ending of this. I'm ending it with that person. And I was shifting, right? We met right at the right time. And so Eileen is the one that introduced us and she's no longer with us. So she was our angel.
No.
And here's how I tell people how do you know it's the right one? Well, first off, when in doubt, my spiritual mama would always say, when in doubt, don't. And then if you're trying so hard to fit it in, like if you're trying so hard, no, hands up. He called every day and it just flowed. And then later when it was starting to get more serious and we knew like we were for each other, then fear sets in, right? When you're going to commit. But it just goes, one day goes into the next and you fit. You're not perfect. We all are human beings. but our values aligned, our love for God, our faith, that foundation stuff, how we put family first. We had, our kids mattered. We took care of our family. We treated people right. And we both had similar hearts in being lay ministers. We both wanted to help people. And so it was like, and then we had similar interests. He would go to the operas with me. He never went to one before, but he would go. And then I would go do what he liked to do. So we would go to festivals and things like that. So, so I call it the courtship, and we had a beautiful courtship. He would come and bring me dinner because I was working overnight shift as an assisted living. I had still a couple jobs, finishing school, and he would help. Like he would just come and bring me dinner. He would treat my daughter and I. And so this is another funny story about standards. I wrote an essay about my fall because I messed up with that person. Like I was trying to live a certain way with my standards and I messed up. And I wrote a paper about it and I got an A on the paper.
Mhm.
I gave that essay to him to read. Now, I write that in my book. I share, why would someone do that? Why would you share your most horriblest moments and your mess up with a new person? Like, why? Because I wanted him to know. Like, I don't want to go there no more. I don't want to mess up. I don't want a long-term commitment where I feel I messed up in at the beginning. And so he came the next day after reading that and he brought me flowers and my daughter flowers. And then he also brought me something because so in the essay I talked about sex. I tried not to, okay, but it's so hard, okay, but I wanted a certain way, an example to be for my daughter. Well, I compared it to like a diabetics with chocolate. You just once you start to have a bite of chocolate, you just want to keep going, right? It's so delicious. But for a diabetic, it's horrible. It's hurtful, harmful. Well, he goes and he gives me chocolate and flowers and he says, "Do you like it?" And I said, "I love flowers and chocolate." And he goes, "No, no. Look at the chocolate. Do you like them? They're sugar-free chocolate." He got it. I'm like, "You got it." And we both had determined if we crossed this line, we would not continue. We would not cross the line. And we both did that. Now, mind you, it wasn't gonna be a long courtship because we
Mhm.
were trying not to cross the line, but he honored that. And so, see, I felt safe in that. And do you know later, and research backs this up, later, the courtship was on purpose because it deposited into our bank accounts, they call it, the emotional and heart, because the acclimation years began full steam right after our honeymoon. Slam, like bam, acclimation began, period. And it was hard. And because we honored our standard, because we kept that line, it it kept us. The safety was there, the trust was there that we were gonna get through this hard time together, and we did, but it was, like, horrible and happy combined. I call it mixed blessings, but more jewels, junk first turns into jewels slowly, and we're still in process. Like, it's a junk to jewels on repeat, but yeah, so that's how I met him, and yeah, we're 22 years now on the other side, so
You know what I love about that story is how he noticed you but didn't get an opportunity to talk, like, all, like, the different pieces, if it's, like, meant to be, like, stuff always comes back around, you know, and so that
Yeah,
was, like, really cool, and just to hear, how you said that, like, that courtship really mattered, that you guys kept your standards because yeah, like, the Hallmark movies, like what you talk about, they don't
yeah,
always show the rough times in the marriage and the, like, the acclimation, like what you were saying, and
yeah.
so, thank you for sharing all of that, and, like, honestly, hearing you talk, it's like, you can just tell, all this means so much to you, like,
Yeah.
of your journey and being able to share that with others, and it's just cool to hear.
Yeah, thank you, Steph. And yeah, I mean, us girls, sometimes we're so hard on ourselves and give ourselves grace. Yesterday I took a day adventure. I learned what to do and not do sometimes. And I went to, we call it's the breakers here in Florida. And I learned that I'm attracted to certain places and I love beauty and architecture and design and history, all of it. And so I take myself on day trips to the breakers and I sit in the lobby. I go to the restaurant. I look at all the beautiful, design. I look up at their ceiling and the lights and their floral arrangement. They have a giant floral arrangement when you walk in the doors. And I journaled, I wrote my to-do list, I worked on my calendar, I read a little book for a bit, and I just soaked it all in, and I'm like, "Yes, I belong here." I do, because the beauty within, like, and that you don't always feel it, and even now, I'll still have to force myself to go out into gatherings and places, but I learned, do what feeds you, do what fills you up, read books that inspire you, because then you're better. Like, if you do you better, it comes out better. So, yeah, find what inspires you and go do it. Even if it's just for an hour. A car ride with music. Oh my gosh, I would take car rides. When my daughter went with her dad, like when I was on my own, I would go car riding up and down Indian River Drive, and it's such a beautiful thing along the river. And I would play my music loud with the windows open. You do what does it. I didn't need money for that. So I went car riding with the music for free.
No, and that is a good reminder. We can all feel like movie stars with little sunglasses driving down the road with the music on. Um, well, I really have enjoyed chatting with you, and for those of you that are listening, make sure to check out Georgette's podcast, Junk to Jewels, because you have a lot more there, and to get your book as well. Which is the same title, Junk to Jewels, but then Brokenness and Despair to Beauty, and now I can't read my handwriting in again.
Journey through brokenness and despair to beauty and delight, because that's possible.
Delight, that's what my handwriting said, delight. Um, but, honestly, Georgette, I hope that this does give hope um, to anyone that's in the thick of it with divorce or anything else that you feel like your life is broken or shattered or that you aren't where you're supposed to be yet. And just remember to put on your shoes, do your best, and believe in the impossible. And I'll catch you guys next Sunday.
All my dreams are